Huge show lined up for you on the Tragics tonight. Stick around, we've got the full panel on board, but make sure you join us as we discuss why William Buck Premier will be looking at St Bernard's this weekend to see if they can keep the competition alive. Can Fitzroy win Premier B? And also, Melbourne High School Old Boys. Their stunner has left the competition wide open in Division 2. All that and more on the Tragics right after this. Hello everyone, welcome to VAFA Tragics. Great to have your company for another week as we welcome the panel. And Nick, a big weekend of VAFA football's just been had, but we've got a couple more to go before we look at the September action.
Absolutely, it's all heating up, it's all getting exciting, and I'm looking forward to discussing it tonight.
Brenton, only one more week of division football before we look at September action, or late August action. Early September it'll be in the divisions, but all the same, some interesting results on the weekend.
Very interesting results. I just said Melbourne High School Old Boys, St Mary's, the dream is just a glimmer of hope at the moment, but we'll discuss all that in the division report.
Let's get straight into our Nutrients Direct Performance Play of the Week. Nick, why don't you kick us off?
I'd love to kick us off with Sean Pays from Peninsula. He's a superstar. He played his 350th game on the weekend, 349 senior, just the one reserves. He debuted in 1998 and it was the launch of an extraordinary career in the Blue and Tan, which has so far netted 6 best and fairest, 5 runner-ups and 11 club goal-kicking awards. He was a club captain for 9 seasons, won the league best and fairest in 2005 and was picked for the combined VAFA rep side in 2000. And on the weekend, yeah, they lost to Caulfield, but he kicked 3 goals. So congratulations, Sean. Fantastic career.
Excellent stuff. He's a great guy too, Sean. Brenton, your Performance Player of the Week.
I'll go to Preston this week, and Jake Powell, who kicked 5 in their come-from-behind win over Emmaus Leos. That's 14 out of 10 games for Powell, and also the Calcedo brothers, Sean and Dean, dragged their side across the line in a very important win.
Hooley Dooley, you wouldn't believe it. Callum Dooley has done it for De La Salle. He's got them back on the winners list, and with 6 goals, he's the Performance Player of the Week. De La Salle with their win over St Kevin's, which we may as well swing straight into, so well done, Callum. Just his second game in this year, Nick, as well, for Callum Dooley, and he's kicked 6, and maybe you're wondering why Paul Sadlerley hasn't had him in the side before then to help Dealer get back and have a big win, which they needed over St Kevin's.
Well, yeah, as you said, you would have thought so. He's played 14 games in the reserves, but he really played his part and was ultimately the match win on the weekend, as well as Tom Humphrey and Hugh Nicholson, who both kicked 3 goals each too. Jake Williams, Xavier Murphy, Matt Fields and all the big names, they all stood up, but now they're still 1 game behind Blacks. Pretty heavy percentage, but exactly what they needed to break that streak.
It's going to be a really interesting finish to the season, Nick. De La Salle have got OMs and Carey in the coming weeks. OMs haven't been easy beats by any stretch, but the Panthers, certainly not going to be an easy beat in the last round, but you'd think De La Salle could win both of those games, which means they're still relying on Blacks to drop a game.
It's absolutely fantastic, and it's fantastic for the competition. I had De-La as one of the form sides of the competition halfway through the year. Now they're fighting for a final spot. William Buck Premier has been fantastic this year. I don't know if they can do it. I know you've got an opinion on that, but I'm not too sure. It could be a big ask.
Well, I think we mentioned at the top of the show there, St Bernard's, I think, massive game this weekend against Blacks. I'm sure we'll just talk about it more in the 4 questions, but the Burnies weren't quite at their best against Old Trinity, and speaking to Old Trinity sources, they're a bit disappointed that, after having such a good rivalry with St Bernard's, they were able to, kick clear of them so comfortably in a couple of matches this year. Old Trinity, they're in good form though. I reckon they're back towards their best now.
Yeah, they certainly are. After a bit of a mid-season form slump, they are right in it with their head and shoulders above the rest. I think at this time, there's the chasing pack with Blues, Blacks, and also Zaverians.
Nick, you also had a look at Collegians and Uni Blacks. Collegians only kicked 4 goals in 1 term. All 4 of them at that.
They did. Unfortunately for Collegians, it was a really important game for them and it would have put them 2 games clear of St Bernard's, but they were unable to get up. It was all Blacks in the first term as they hit the scoreboard 9 times with Tyrone Bean kicking his 2 goals. Trailing by 27 at quarter time, the Lions drew level at the main break via those 4 unanswered goals we spoke about, going to Will Johnson, who kicked 2, Dom Russo and Tom Pemberthy. But when unable to sustain the intensity in the second half as Adam Pitt, Brent Sheehan, who has been in fantastic form, and Hugh Curnow starred and helped the Blacks to 3 unanswered goals to close out the match. Look, things I took out of the game, Beedman can be stopped, but as we see with any finals-bound team, other players usually stand up. Sheehan, Curnow and Cruz were the main ball winners on the weekend.
Cruz has found some really good form in the last couple of weeks. I think he's sort of readjusted after coming back from the VFL, and it is a challenge when you just change levels We see it all the time when players go up and also when they've come back. And often when AFL players come into the VAFA or former listed players, they struggle for that first season just adjusting to it. I think Cruz has found that a bit.
What is it? Is it the pace?
No, well, the pace is obviously high. You're coming from a high level down, and you're just used to that possession, that ability to retain possession, which you don't always have in the VAFA. It is often a quick kick and go type game, and I think we see that particularly with players when they come back a level. They sometimes find it just a bit longer to adjust to the way the game's played at VAFA level.
The thing about Cruz as well, he knows how to get it done when it's the business end of the season. He stands up in big games, big finals. He's going to be very important for Blacks come the end of the year.
Any other things from that game?
Just for Collegians, we know how good they are defensively, but offensively they are lacking quite a bit. While they often hold teams to less than 11 goals, 64 points to be exact, they are averaging just 58 points for. Now, Tom Pemberthy is a star through the ruck and through the midfield. He really is an extra midfielder, but another tall presence will be high on the wish list for Collegians going into 2017.
Nick Corp leaving them at the start of the year has really hurt. He's gone to Sorrento, and he's that presence that was there last year. But I think they've laid some fantastic foundations this year and going into years to come. A defensive style of game, that's the hardest bit of the game, I believe, to learn. Now, you can add the attacking pieces, but I think they've been fantastic this year.
Yeah, I'm not so sure they're going to hang on. I mean, they've got a really tough run. Massive game for them against Old Carey this weekend, Collegians. I know that they're worried about it. I'm not, Carey have obviously challenged sides at times this year, but they've only won the one game. You'd have to be, as the Lions, hoping for a really big turnout against the Panthers in round 17.
Think about Carey too. They've shown they can kick a score. So if they get on top of Collegians early, and Collegians can't hold them in, then it's going to be worrying times for Collegians.
Well, speaking of kicking score, they did kick 7 goals in the final quarter, Old Carey against Old Zaverians, but it wasn't enough as Zaz ran out by over 10 goals, and they've won their 7th game in a row. They hang on to 3rd spot. They're still chasing that double chance. They've got Old Trinity in the last round. They've got Uni Blues away next week as well. It's a big couple of weeks for Zavs. They probably need to win both of those games and be on a run of 9 going into the finals if they're a chance to get the double chance.
Well, ultimately that game against Old Trinity will be the double chance game, round 18. That'll be the biggest game this season.
Unless Blues beat Old Zavs this week, of course.
Of course.
Which could happen. Speaking of Blues, they beat Old OMs, and Old Melburnians have been fantastic this year, and a credit to them. They only went down by 6 points against Blues, but another great performance by the OMs, and they'll be better for it next year. I think a lot of people had reservations about how OMs would go in William Buck Premier this year, but they've proven a lot of people wrong.
And they've been far and away better side than St Kevin's. OM's very unlucky to miss the 4, but they've shown their best is good enough, but consistency's been a problem, but they'll be better for the experience.
St Kevin's, we mentioned, a poor showing against De La Salle, but they're still not out of relegation trouble just yet. They could still find themselves going down. They lose both of their games. Collegians need to win one, and St Bernard's need to win their last 2, including their last round match against St Kevin's. There's only about 5% to make up, and St Kevin's could still find themselves in that relegation spot.
Worrying times for Daniel Harford and Michael Christian, but I'm sure they'll be dragging every ounce out of their boys this week.
It makes the Blacks and St Bernard's game this weekend huge. Blacks win and pretty much it's season over, so St Bernard's would be relegated and the 4 would also be done. De La Salle, can they make the 4? That's the other question as well. So
that's exciting. That's the most exciting bit. If De La can go hard the next 2 weeks, that's the most exciting bit for me.
That's it for William Buck Premier. We'll be back with all the other sections. Premier B, and as I mentioned, Melbourne High making that charge towards September right after this on the Tragics.
Anytime is the right time to get fit at Anytime Fitness. Access over 400 gyms across the country 24/7 and discover why more Australians train at Anytime Fitness than any other gym. Go online and register now for your free 7-day pass and feel something better.
Time now for the headlines on the VAFA Tragics. Here is Nick Armistead.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Vince Sorrenti has been locked in to provide comedic entertainment at this year's William Buck Grand Final lunch. Sorrenti is an internationally recognised stand-up comedian and a 5-time winner of the Mo Award for Excellence in Live Performance. AFL Commission Chairman Mike Fitzpatrick will also attend as this year's special guest interviewee with Barry Cassidy. Saturday marks 50 years since the final VFL game was played at Brunswick Street Oval. As such, Fitzroy will host a major player reunion and bring back many players who have worn the Fitzroy jumper on that famous oval prior to 1966, including Tony Ongarello, Kevin Murray and Bruno Zorzi. VAFA Media will release further information on that event later in the week.
On to Premier B. You mentioned Fitzroy there. Who's speaking about Fitzroy?
I'm speaking about Fitzroy.
Because
they're 20.
Tell me about them, because they are doing great things.
Their 20-point win over Beaumaris at Brunswick Street Oval, a 9-goal third term has handed Fitzroy their third successive win as they took down Beaumaris by 20 points. As I said, they trailed by 4 points at the main break, but the Royals kicked 9 of the next 12 goals, with Luke Baker and Daniel Bassetto kicking 4 apiece to lead them from the front. And that's been the match of the round for Prem B.
Yeah, and
they're charging towards finals.
They are. As Monash Blues keep hanging on as well, they beat Old Brighton as they won by 8 points at the Beach Oval. Ajax still not out of relegation troubles down at the bottom, with both Hampton Rovers and Old Haileybury still chances to catch them. They need a bit of percentage and a couple of wins, and relying on Ajax to lose their last 2 games. But it's all not done in Premier B. Parkdale Vultures went down to Rovers, so a good win for them. So they're still in it. And I'm not sure. I don't think they get out, though. I don't think they get out.
Who do you think gets in the 4? That's what
I'll just make Old Scotch and Beaumaris this week. Old Scotch and Fitzroy this week is a massive, massive game. If the Roys beat Old Scotch and Monash Blues win, the Cardinals are out of the 4, and it could stay that way going into the last round, and that could be it. So
Scotchies won't be happy about that either.
And I think the Roys will beat Old Scotch.
I think they will
it's just where the Blues can get the 4 points as well.
Scotch got some big names back on the weekend, including Daggy and Scott Sherwin. If those boys keep playing at their full potential, then it's going to be an absolute rip-off.
Oh, 100%. But Old Scotch have beaten Old Haileybury. I know Old Haileybury are fighting for relegation, but just 14 points. It's a really tight race. The Cardinals could miss the finals.
They could. I wouldn't back
After being relegated, they won't be happy about that.
No, Premier C action. Unbelievable results in Premier C. Essentially, the bottom 4 sides fighting relegation have all had wins.
Unbelievable. It was one of the most exciting rounds. I think it was the most exciting section on the weekend. I'll talk about Oakley, though. They laid claim to the upset of the round when they came from 8 points down to overrun Mazenod by 5 goals. Trevor Bromley was at his goal-kicking best for the Crushers, booting 5 alongside Aaron Cloak. Liam Gillard and Josh Paola were dominant around the ground, while Nick Thomas was named the Nodders' best. The loss means the Nodders fall from 1st to 2nd again, and Caulfield reclaim top spot. And Oakley get that really, really important win.
It's a fascinating situation to have Ormond also have a big win, huge win over Kew. When I say huge win in the context of trying to avoid relegation, Caulfield Grammarians did beat Peninsula, which was a good result for Caulfield. Peninsula could have maybe pushed up into those double chance regions if they were able to pinch that, but unable to. Marsland beating Williamstown, big win for them, and Old Camberwell beating Old Ivanhoe. Incredible stuff.
The Wells were 2-10 and staring down the barrel of relegation. They won 4 in the trot, and they're safe for now.
We'll cover more of that in the big questions, I'm sure. But onto the divisions. Equally exciting stuff in the divisions, Brenton. St Mary's didn't quite heed my advice and beat Pegs last week.
No.
But so Pegs, I saw the commentary. Well done. Credit where it's due. You've secured at least 3rd spot, and you'll play finals. But St Mary's still not out of it.
The equation is this: there's a glimmer of hope, but it's only faint. Now they are a game and 13% shy of Therry Penola in 4th. Now this week, St Mary's host Paran Assumption at Ferndale Park. Now I need to beat Paran by, I'd say, a 13+ goal deficit.
Which is possible.
And Therry are hosting Old Mentonians, who are fresh off a loss over to Oggs this week. So St Mary's need OMs to beat Therry, and they need to smack Paran, and then they might just sneak in.
All of it's possible.
It is all possible.
Yep.
And at the other end of the table, we had Knobs beat Parade on the weekend.
Only question is do Old Mentonians rest a few players potentially going into that last round?
Yeah, potentially. But they lost to Oggs, so they're going to try and maybe get some form back. They've been a bit hit and miss.
They lost to Oggs for the 2nd time this year too. Does that worry them heading into
Well,
September?
they looked like a powerhouse at the start of the year, but I think they've come back to the pack a bit, and the top 4 is wide open. I think anyone can beat anyone on their day, and it's going to be an exciting final series. And as I said, I'll just touch on the bottom half of the ladder. We had Knobs beating Parade on the weekend, a 10-point win, and now they're a game and 4% clear of Parade, who are now in the relegation zone. Now Knobs head to Friars this week, and they need to win that, and Parade need to beat Ivanhoe on the weekend and hope the Friars beat Knobs for them to stay out of relegation.
Which is all possible. Division 2, equally, we mentioned Melbourne High School Old Boys, absolute stunning win over Yarra Valley.
And I've got a little bit of feedback on the weekend over my tip of Yarra Valley over Melbourne High, just from Andrew Villani. He wasn't happy that I coined the Ranger from the north either. I might not be invited to his engagement party, but they had a 46-point win over Yarra. Now, the equation is this in Div 2. They are 0.87% shy of Yarra Valley in 4th spot. Now, Knobs host West Brunswick this week, who are fresh off a loss to St John's, and Yarra head to Bulleen Temp. So it's an absolutely fascinating game. I think those two games I'm not sure about Melbourne High and West Brunswick being 50-50, but the Bulleen and Yarra. Bulleen has shown they can beat anyone in the bottom half of the ladder on their day, so it's going to be a very tough ask. And
despite the Unicorns' efforts, I reckon they're really up against it if they're going to beat West Brunswick.
West Brunswick they're a powerhouse at the moment.
I reckon it's a great effort. It's a great story for the Unicorns, particularly after the troubled couple of seasons they've had. But if they were to sneak into the finals, fantastic result. I just don't think they're going to get there.
Preston has a chance to sneak into second spot this week and host Jocks in the second semi. They face Eltham, and they need to smack Eltham at the moment. But Preston just had a little scare against the Mayors. They had to kick 7 goals to 2 in the final term.
Division
to
3.
get over a Mayors. Powerhouse have secured their top 6 spot. And it's their 5th win on the trot. It's been a fantastic renaissance for them in the latter half of the year. The big one in Div 3 is Glen Ira versus Hawthorn this week to decide top spot. There's a whopping 45% or something separating them, but they're on level on points.
We got the Division 3 finals wrong last week. I understand, it's been changed.
It's not first versus 6.
No.
Is it?
No. 1 and 2 get the bye.
So it's been changed straight through to semi-finals.
Straight through.
Nothing hinges on that game then. It's superfluous what I just said, so don't worry about that. That's been the division report. It would have been nice to have that information a little bit earlier. That's been fantastic.
No, but last week. So what's the situation, Nick? How does the finals play out in Division 3 now?
Well, 1 and 2 obviously get the bye, and then we've got 3, 4, 5, 6. Winners go through.
The winners go through and face 1 and 2.
And that's it. So 1 and 2 only play one final to get into the grand final.
Yep.
It looks like
Wonder why. I think there was a bit of unrest about the way the 6 went last year, or the previous seasons with 6 beating the top side, which meant the second side, if they lost, got knocked out.
Yeah, so it was obviously the highest loser that went on.
Yep.
And so there was obviously a few things that happened there. There's obviously led to this change. And so this is what's happening now in Division 3.
Do we know if the club's happy with that situation?
Well, I don't know.
It's still essentially in a knockout final. Your first final's still a knockout final now.
Well, I'm not sure if they're happy or not with it. I know they're unhappy when we said it wrong last week, but I'm not sure.
So
we'll have to talk to
well, give us feedback. Share the comments on the Facebook page when you see the Tragic posted. I'd love to know if people are supportive of this model in the sense, because for me, I prefer the old model.
Yeah, I prefer the old model as well.
Going straight through.
Yeah, I think so. On to the 4 questions.
Yeah.
Nick, you've got the new ball tonight.
I do, and you mentioned earlier, is everyone in William Buck Premier barracking for St Bernards this weekend?
Absolutely they are. Because if they don't barrack for St Bernards this weekend, the season's done and we've got nothing to talk about next week. So we want St Bernards, unfortunately Blacks, I'm sorry about this, we want St Bernards to have a win over Blacks this week. It keeps the relegation fight alive. It also keeps the Final 4 situation alive, particularly if De La Salle have a win over OMs. For William Buck Premier's sake, yes, we want St Bernards to win this week. Now, is the double relegation system in the VAFA, does that make it the best competition in Australia?
Oh, of course it does. It's just going by the show tonight. There's been so many questions and not a lot of answers we can actually divulge. So it throws up a lot of scenarios, a lot of...
this is highlighted in Premier C, though.
Highlighted in Premier C. It's been, those results on the weekend were absolutely fantastic.
Unbelievable.
You wouldn't have read about that. It's been amazing.
I don't think there's any other competition in local football where you get the bottom 4 sides all winning within the second last game round of the year in order to try and keep their seasons alive.
So much hinges on every game this week. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'll go to you, Nick. Now, Prem B, the form side. Can Fitzroy win the Prem B flag?
Absolutely they can. I say that with a high level of confidence. Already, they've beaten, as you saw on the weekend, they beat Beaumaris. They've already drawn with Beaumaris after falling to a massive deficit at halftime in that earlier game. They've beaten St Bede's, they've beaten Monash Blues. They're both top 4 chances. St Bede's probably in the top 4. They've lost to the Cardinals, but as we said earlier, they play them this week, so much rests on this game this week. But I think with Passetto, with Rory Angiolala playing very well, I think they definitely can in Premier B. And I'll come straight back to you.
Return, sir.
Old Paradians or Brunswick North All Boys St Pat's?
I'm going to go for Knobs. Danny King will lead them over the line, and it's going to be a fantastic effort for them.
Big win on the weekend then.
Yeah, massive win on the weekend.
Gents, it's been a great show. We hope you've enjoyed the Tragics, everyone at home. 1 week to go in the divisions and a couple of the junior competitions. Of course, it's the Club 18 Grand Final. We forgot to mention that. The Crocs, would you believe, are not playing in a Club 18 Grand Final for the first time in who knows how long. I'm sure they'll tell us. It's been an unbelievable result with St Francis Xavier getting over Old Zaverians in the Club 18's semi-finals to make it through to the grand final.
Well, a quick tip there.
I think St Francis Xavier go on and win it.
Yeah, they'll be back-to-back for them, I think. Well, no, maybe they were... Yeah,
That
Club 18.
was Section 2 last year.
Section 2 last year.
Spartans are also going for back-to-back in Section 1.
Yep. Well, hope you enjoy the Club 18 grand final. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you again next week on the Tragics.